Greetings from beautiful Topsail Island in coastal North Carolina. Spring fever is in the air, and we've enjoyed a wonderful spring-like week. Let's get right down to business. I want to welcome you to our Financial News You Can Use weekly TV program, hosted by yours truly, Wayne Isaksen. Each week, we report on a variety of economic events taking place across the country and the world. These events are generally not reported in the mainstream media. I report on these events because it's important that you get the truth, not the lies and fabrications so often reported on the news channels. Topsail Island is abuzz with the sounds of hammers and saws as many homeowners are taking care of repairs and renovations to get their summer homes and rental homes ready for the fast approaching summer season. This week, we welcome James Davis, owner of Born to Build. He's a custom home builder as well as a top-notch home renovation specialist. To my utter surprise, I called James the other day asking him to appear on the show, and he told me that he was working right here in the area, building another beautiful custom home. So I wasted no time in getting there and checking it out, so Neal can ask him some interesting questions, and I am sure we will learn some valuable tips about the building and renovation business. Before we get to that, let's start with this week's financial news you can use. I can tell that the world is going to hell from one end to the other. It's wall-to-wall bad news out there. The situation is so fluid and so dynamic, it's almost impossible to post a story that captures what's really happening, as the situations are changing so rapidly today. Our first story starts with housing news out of Seattle, Washington. Few believed that the housing market here would ever collapse. Now they wonder if it will ever stop slumping. The rolling real estate crash that ravaged Florida and the Southwest is delivering a new wave of distress to communities once thought to be immune. Economically diversified cities where the boom was relatively restrained. In the last year, home prices in Seattle had a bigger decline than in Las Vegas. Minneapolis dropped more than Miami, and Atlanta fared worse than Phoenix, Arizona. The bubble markets, where builders, buyers, and banks ran wild, began falling first. Economists say so they are close to the end of the cycle, and in some cases on their way back up. Not everyone else still has another season of pain. When I go and talk to people around the town, they say, "Wow, I thought we were going to have a 12% correction and call it a day," said Stan Humphreys, chief economist for the housing site Zillow, which is based in Seattle. But this thing just keeps on going. Seattle is down about 31% from its mid-2007 peak, and according to Zillow's calculations, still has as much as 10% to fall, Mr. Humphreys estimates. The rest of the country will drop a further 5 to 7% as last year's tax credits for home buyers continue to wear off. We went into 2010 feeling gangbusters, thanks to Uncle Sam, Mr. Humphreys said. We ended it feeling penniless, with more home values tanking. Hey, Stan, welcome to the neighborhood. This picture says it all. And from the Protect Your Personal Wealth file, the revelation that TSA workers have admitted to stealing huge amounts of cash from passengers they singled out for enhanced security screening is far from an isolated incident, and underscores how armies of degenerates are being employed by the federal government to push around and dominate members of the public going about their daily business. Makes you want to travel by train, I'd say. Our next unsettling story comes out of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin National Guard prepares for worker unrest after the governor unveils an emergency budget. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, a Republican, unveiled an emergency budget proposal Friday to deal with the state's growing budget woes. Wisconsin is a $137 million deficit this year and faces a projected $2.9 billion budget softfall for 2012 and 2013. Under Walker's plan, public employees would lose all of their collective bargaining rights, except a limited negotiation of wages. State workers would also have to contribute more to their pension and their health care benefit plans. Unions erupted in outrage as they learned about Walker's proposal. The governor told Milwaukee Public Radio that he has briefed the Wisconsin National Guard to prepare them for any worker unrest. Let's take a quick moment to talk about the outrageous 2011 budget. Obama's budget, released Monday, was conceived as a blueprint for future spending, but it also points the bleakest picture yet to the current fiscal year, which is on track to record a record federal deficit, and we will see the government's overall debt surpass the size of the entire U.S. economy. Obama's budget projects that 2011 will see the biggest one-year budget debt jump in history, or nearly $2 trillion, to reach $15.476 trillion by September 30th, the end of the fiscal year. That would be 102.6% of gross domestic product, the first time since World War II that dubious figure has been reached. And the budget projects the government will run a deficit of $1.645 trillion this year alone, topping 2009's previous record by more than $230 billion. By contrast, 2007's deficit was a mere $160 billion total. When the nation's gross domestic product surpasses 90%, it severely hinders economic growth. They still don't get it. They must stop the spending, cap it. They must not raise the debt ceiling again. We are on the road to a hyperinflationary depression. And this picture says it all. The worst freeze in 60 years wipes out entire crops across the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. Get ready to pay a lot more for produce at the supermarket. In early February, the worst freeze in 60 years wiped out entire crops across the southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico. Already, it has been reported that some U.S. supermarkets have doubled and even tripled prices on certain produce items. Yes, you read that correctly. The price of certain vegetables is actually doubling or even tripling in many of the supermarkets. The really bizarre weather that we have been seeing all over the globe this winter is really playing havoc with food prices. The global price of food hit an all-time record during the month of January, and most observers expect food prices to continue to soar. Even before this recent horrible freeze in the southwest U.S. and northern Mexico, global food prices were pushed higher by unprecedented flooding in Australia and Brazil, and key agricultural areas of China are now experiencing the worst drought in 200 years. Things are getting really crazy out there. Produce prices in the U.S. are eventually expected to return back to normal levels, but this just shows you how dramatically food prices can change and when a major disaster happens. Most Americans assume that the United States is generally immune to food price shocks, so this recent freeze is going to shake a lot of people up. The whole lot of Americans are going to be really surprised the next time they go shopping for fresh produce. I think it's time to learn how to plant your own victory garden, don't you? And we will have a show on that in the future, that's for sure. Here's one country's solution to rising food prices. Bahrain's government has given every family, get this, $2,660 per family in a bid to quell dissent and calm nerves over rising food prices. The government has also recently said it will increase press freedoms in the country. One way to combat soaring food prices, eh? Too bad that's still not working. Since we were having a builder on the show today, the next story ties it all together. Home remodeling. Pick renovations that pay off. If your remote control is stuck on Home and Garden TV, if you recognize Bob Vila's voice sight unseen, and you're on a first name basis with the clerk up at the local Home Depot, chances are you've caught the home improvement bug. You're not alone. Today, Americans are sprucing up everything from Arizona tract homes to New England salt boxes to Florida condos. About half of you prefer the challenge and savings of doing it yourselves, while the rest of us prefer to have contractors give new life to our old rooms. When it comes time to sell, you will recoup the cost of that new master suite, state-of-the-art kitchen, or dormered attic loft. The time to find out is before you pull out the power saw or contract for a home makeover. If you have the equity to match your total project cost, a traditional home equity loan might be your best bet. If your improvements include energy-efficient upgrades, such as insulation, thermal windows, or a new HVAC system, you might also qualify for energy-saving loans through your local utilities or related businesses. Here's what's hot in remodels today, room by room. Number one is kitchens. Typically suffer the most wear and tear, and because kitchens tend to follow style and color trends, they often seem dated sooner than other rooms in the house. The most popular minor improvements include adding functionality with dual sinks and cooking stations, and cosmetic improvements such as under-cabinet lighting, marble or granite countertops, and ceramic tile backsplashes. To add space, consider a walk-in pantry or a breakfast alcove. The next following kitchens are bathrooms, family rooms, bedrooms, master suites, decks, and windows. Well, that's a wrap for today's financial news you can use. Now I'll have a little of this while we take time for the commercial break and return to Neal and James.